gang and drug bust in Warner Robins. Authorities say 28 people are now behind bars after a year-long investigation into a major narcotics ring.
America, Warner Robins, Georgia just witnessed the largest coordinated law enforcement operation in central Georgia history. 20 different agencies had to work together to take down what police are calling generational crime ring. We're talking about 30 arrests spanning 3 generations of the same family. But here's what's really shocking about this story. These weren't just random criminals. These were families who were literally passed down drug dealing like a family business, with grandparents, parents, and teenagers all working the same criminal enterprise. We're talking about 17-year-olds getting arrested alongside 53-year-olds in coordinated raids that required a 21-month investigation to crack. What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This story perfectly illustrates what I've been warning you about: the complete breakdown of family values and community structure in America. When crime becomes generational, we're not dealing with individual bad actors anymore. We're dealing with systematic cultural decay that threatens the very fabric of our communities. Let me break down the scope of this operation because the numbers are absolutely staggering. This was Operation Windham Way Blockade, a 21-month investigation that required coordination between 20 different law enforcement agencies across central Georgia.
Warner Robins Police Chief Wayne Fisher says Operation Windham Way Blockade busted a generational crime ring.
The operation, conducted on the afternoon of October 8th, led to 30 arrests. 6 of those charged were already incarcerated.
Think about this logically. It took 20 law enforcement units and a 21-month investigation to break up one generational crime ring on one street. How many more are out there? How many resources are being drained from law-abiding citizens to deal with families who made crime a generational business model?
Chief Fisher says the ages of the accused range from 17 to 53. He added that crime in Windham Way and surrounding neighborhoods has long been an issue.
Almost all have violations of Street Gang Terrorism and Prevention Act, with 1 to multiple count.
Police Chief Wayne Fisher specifically said this has been a historic problem in our community. When he says historic, he means families passing down criminal enterprises like people passing down recipes for meatloaf. This is what happens when you let crime become culturally acceptable in a community.
Wednesday's raid led to 28 arrests, all connected to a gang-driven drug operation in Warner Robins.
There had been complaints from people in the neighborhood, and it really got them looking at what was going on over there.
Now here's where it gets really disturbing, and this is what mainstream media won't tell you. Chief Fisher specifically said, you have had a family historically in the community engaging with what developed as criminal enterprise. Translation: grandparents teaching parents, parents teaching kids, kids growing up thinking that's normal. This is what happens when you let crime become culturally acceptable.
During the search, law enforcement seized more than $27,000, 8 vehicles, and 6 guns, along with drugs like meth, ecstasy, and marijuana.
The evidence they seized tells you the entire story. More than $27,000 in cash, 8 vehicles, 6 guns, nearly 25 pounds of Mary Jane, 6 grams of methamphetamine, plus ecstasy and cocaine. But here's what really gets me fired up. Chief Fisher said this ring was feeding hundreds of pounds of drugs into the community each year, and what they caught was just sitting around on the raid day.
If you have a certain crime ring like that taking place in your community, other crimes gear off of it.
The Warner Robins Police Department, alongside the House and County Sheriff's Office, teamed up with other agencies like the United States Marshal Service, Georgia State Patrol, and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
This is exactly what I've been telling you about the ripple effect of crime. When you have generational criminal enterprises operating in communities, it just doesn't affect drug sales. Now let's talk about the legal implications here, because this wasn't just about drug possession charges. Almost 30 defendants are facing violations in Georgia's Street Gang Terrorism and Prevention Act, and they were being prosecuted under RICO charges.
Warner Robins Mayor LaRonda Patrick says she's hopeful their work will help residents in the impacted area feel more safe.
It makes me feel really, really good. We're very proud of our team and our community and the joint effort that this took.
For those of you that aren't familiar with RICO charges, Racketeering, Influence, and Corruption Organization Act is what's used when you're dealing with organized criminal enterprises. This isn't individual crime. This is systematic systematic, organized criminal activity that requires dismantling the entire networks.
According to Chief Fisher, the operation came as the result of a 21-month investigation, with a grand total of 355 warrants signed. He says there's more work to do, but he's relieved to get 30 criminals off the street.
355 warrants. That is not a typo. It took 355 different warrants to build a case against one generational crime family. Think about the man hours, the resources, the coordination required. This is what happens when crime becomes a family tradition instead of individual choices.
All will be brought over for Reno charges being prosecuted out of the House County District Attorney's Office. Again, who work hand in glove with to bring a durable solution to the problem that has been facing this community.
District Attorney Eric Edwards calls this one of the most extensive operations that he has ever handled. He said the goal was clear: stop the flow of drugs in Houston County before it costs more lives. This, my friends, is what real law enforcement looks like when you're serious about dismantling criminal organization. Now here's where the story gets even more interesting. They're interviewing some neighbors, and one guy said he felt safe for 20 years and didn't know about the operation. That is exactly the problem. How do you have a massive drug operation running for generations in a neighborhood that didn't even know about it?
But for some neighbors, the bust came as a surprise.
The perspective in the neighborhood hasn't changed. I mean, I still feel safe here.
Ryan Quaid lives just a few houses away from one of the homes raided.
He moved into the neighborhood 6 months ago and says the streets have always been quiet. Think about this. Either people are willfully blind, or these operations are so embedded in the community that they've become invisible.
Individual actions don't predict anyone's, whether it's safety or anything like that, and so it's I'm glad to see that people were doing their job and helping keep the community safe at least.
This is what I've been telling you about the normalization of crime. When criminal enterprises operate for decades in the same location, they become part of the community fabric. People stop seeing them as criminal operations and start seeing them as just how things are.
Edwards calls it one of the most extensive operations he's handled. He says it's just one step in a larger effort to keep dangerous drugs off Houston County streets.
It's been a huge focus of all of our local law enforcement. Overdose deaths are something that plagues the entire country.
Let me give you the hard data that mainstream media won't emphasize here. Warner Robins has a crime rate that exceeds national average for both violent and property crime. The Georgia Gang Investigators Association found a substantial increase in gang memberships and activity across the state since 2018, with gangs linked to a majority of the state's violent crimes. This October 2025 operation isn't just happening in isolation. This is just one of multiple major busts happening right now. This tells me the problem in this street, in this community, is way bigger than one family.
The investigation started in 2024 after neighbors spoke up about suspicious activity. After a year-long investigation, police gathered enough information to serve warrants at multiple locations where they found drugs like marijuana, meth, and cocaine.
Think about the timeline here. This operation was running for years before anybody said anything. How many communities across America have similar situations where generational crime families operate with impunity because people are too afraid to speak out? District Attorney Edwards specifically mentioned that overdose deaths plague the entire country. This isn't just a Warner Robins problem. This is a national crisis being fueled by generational criminal enterprises that treat drug dealing like a family business. This is what I've been telling you about cultural decay. When crime becomes generational, when families pass down criminal enterprises, instead of work ethic and values, we're looking at a complete breakdown of the social fabric. This isn't poverty causing crime. This is crime becoming a family tradition. And you know what will fix this? It's not complicated at all. You break the cycle by making crime unprofitable and holding entire networks accountable. When you arrest 30 people in one operation and they're all related or connected, you don't just prosecute individuals, you dismantle the entire enterprise.
We don't want our people in Houston County dropping dead because of ingesting illegal narcotic.
District Attorney Eric Edwards says the goal was clear: stop the flow of drugs in Houston County before it cost more lives.
In my opinion, this is what we need more of across America: law enforcement that's willing to invest 21 months, which is a long time, and coordinate 20 agencies to dismantle generational crime families, prosecutors who understand that RICO charges are necessary when you're dealing with organized criminal enterprises. But here's what really gets me fired up about this whole situation. While politicians are busy with their pet projects, virtue signalings, communities like Warren Robins are dealing with multi-generational crime families that require massive law enforcement operations to dismantle. Where's the federal support here? Where's the media attention? Meanwhile, law-abiding citizens in Warner Roberts have been living with the consequences of criminal enterprises for decades. Increased property crime, drug activity, violence, all because we allowed crime to become generational instead of stopping it when it started. This is what happens when we don't hold people accountable for their choices. We make excuses for their criminal behavior instead of demanding consequences. When we treat crime like a social problem instead of a moral failure. America, this is what real law enforcement looks like when they're serious about protecting communities. Warner Robins just showed us what happens when you let crime become a family business and what it takes to dismantle generational criminal enterprises. The scenes we're seeing, 30 arrests spanning 3 generations, 355 warrants, 20 law enforcement agencies working together. This is what's necessary when crime becomes culturally embedded in communities. This is why we need to support law enforcement, demand accountability from prosecutors, and stop making excuses for generational criminal behavior. When families choose crime as their legacy, the community has a choice to choose justice as their response. Warner Robins just showed us what happens when you let crime become a family business. The question is, how many more Wyndham Ways are out there? And what are we going to do about it? Because I guarantee you, this isn't an isolated problem. It's a preview of what happens when we stop holding people accountable for their choices. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.